This is Ed Chapman, and this video cast is going to cover part of Part B of Unit 1 Ecology. Okay, in this video cast, we're going to focus on energy flow, and we are going to focus on defining producers or autotrophs, consumers or heterotrophs. Okay, the best place to start is some basic physics here. And one of the basic laws of physics that controls biology, chemistry, and just about every aspect of science is that you can't make energy from nothing and you can't destroy energy. You can't make it disappear. The best you can do is you can move it around or convert it. In ecosystems, energy moves through things called food chains and food webs, which we're going to talk about later. The energy that powers food chains is almost always coming from the sun. So we're focusing in biology on the effect of solar radiation, this energy coming from a star 93 million miles away from a planet that we live on. Okay, the Earth also has its own energy that doesn't come from the sun in the form of heat and chemicals, usually deep underground or deep underwater. Producers are organisms that convert light energy into food energy. What this means is a producer is able to take energy from the sun and convert it into food. And the energy in the food is measured in units called calories. So whenever you're talking about food energy, you're actually talking about units of energy known as calories. Now, another name for a producer is an autotroph. Okay, an auto means self, and troph means feeding. So an autotroph is a fancy way of saying self-feeding. Okay, and that goes back to this, don't need the S here. That goes back to the idea of production. Producers are producing their own food energy, so they are self-feeding. The most familiar producers are photosynthetic plants. There are also photosynthetic bacteria that are not plants, and they're all autotrophs. This is a picture you probably are familiar with, seen since middle school. The energy is coming from the sun. It's traveling to a producer like this plant. The producer is using the energy from the sun to combine molecules of carbon dioxide and molecules of water into something we call food. And one of the simplest forms of food is glucose, C6H12O6. And as a byproduct, we also get some oxygen. So the reaction here is CO2 plus H2O produces glucose. We're going to talk more about that in detail when we study photosynthesis in depth. Now, there also are, as I mentioned earlier, photosynthetic bacteria. And more specifically, these are known as cyanobacteria. And you probably have seen these and thought they were algae or some type of gunk, but they are living cells that love to grow on warm, polluted water, like you might find in a pond or a ditch, especially in the summer. And they tend to form this floating, stinky scum. And if you look at it under the microscope, you'll see it's made up of billions of cells of lots of different types of cyanobacteria. They are producers just as much as green plants are producers, but they're single-celled or filaments or clumping. They're not true multicellular organisms. There are also some non-photosynthetic producers, which means they're producing food without using light. And just quickly, I want to tell you a little bit about these. They're known as archaebacteria. Archae means ancient, and they're classified into a group called the archaea. And these are bacteria, they're prokaryotes, but they're completely different from the normal or the usual bacteria that we're associated with. And they have the ability to make their food from chemicals instead of sunlight. And they do this in very extreme environments that usually have no oxygen available, which means they're anaerobic. And they are very different. They have very different metabolisms from all other forms of life. Two places you would find archaebacteria are in hot, acidic, or salty environments like you might find in a hot spring or a geyser. Okay, this happens to be one in Yellowstone Park. This different colored zones, the green, the yellow, the orange, the red, these are all different species of archaebacteria that live at different temperatures. The water's the hottest here where it's coming up out of the ground, and as it gets to the edge, it cools off. And all these archaebacteria can live in these different temperature zones by doing chemosynthesis instead of photosynthesis. This here is an underwater volcano, very deep underwater, very high pressure, absolutely dark, no light is penetrating down this deep. And this black smoky material coming out is superheated water that is just packed with archaebacteria that are feeding on chemicals that are being released from deep underground in this stream of superheated water. So this is kind of like an underwater geyser, underwater volcano that's spewing superheated water instead of lava. Consumers are the other half of the equation. These are organisms that can't make their own food, so they have to consume or eat producers. And consumers are also known as heterotrophs. Now, hetero means different, and troph, of course, means feeding. So heterotrophs are different or other feeding organisms, which means they have to eat something else that contains calories, a plant or material from another consumer. Okay, what I want you guys to do to make sure you understand this is, number one, can you tell me what are the two different kinds of producers on Earth? You can feel free to review this video if you need more information. And what can a producer do that a consumer cannot do? That would tell me that you understand the most important parts of this video cast we just watched. And we will stop here.